We get it a lot, and it's that print marketing is dead. It's a lost marketing campaign initiative. The companies don't need it, but in fact, companies who are looking to stand out, build credibility, build that longevity and that brand awareness, print is a great way to do that.
Hey everyone, today we are joined by Jessica Embree. Jessica has been the creative director at Tula Media Group for over 10 years. She works with client partners to craft their brand identities into compelling stories with clear and consistent messaging frameworks. Jessica is also a Google Ad certified and takes the lead on all of Tula Media Group's print and digital marketing programs for client partners. Jessica is the co-author of the Amazon bestseller, Double Sales, Zero Salespeople. Optimize your sales and marketing into one business development strategy that works. Welcome to the show, Jessica.
Thank you so much for having me, Robert.
So everyone, Jessica and I were talking before actually going into recording, and I thought it was very interesting. One of the things that they focus on quite a lot is print media.
Mhm.
And, in the modern world, when we consider the digital age, if you will, that many of us kind of think of print as a dying form of marketing. And so I thought it was a very interesting concept for us to be able to chat about and how that's ultimately working and the successes that Jessica and her team are ultimately having. So to start off with, what would you say are kind of the biggest misconceptions about print marketing today and its uses?
We get it a lot, and it's that print marketing is dead. It's a lost marketing campaign initiative. The companies don't need it, but in fact, companies who are looking to stand out, build credibility, build that longevity and that brand awareness, print is a great way to do that. And I always go back to the saying that I have is your emptiest inbox is your physical mailbox outside. How can you cut through the noise? How can you be better than your competitors and get that message in front of your consumers? And print is a great way to do that.
And thinking about this a little bit, two things. One, I was curious, we just published a book recently, and I was looking at the amount of ordered physical books versus the digital version. And I'm a person that likes to have the physical, tangible book in my hand. I like to have it as a trophy that goes on my shelf afterwards. And it's seemingly that we are selling at least 75% of the books that we sell are actually physically printed, which I just thought was an interesting kind of take when I was thinking about the concept that we were going to be talking about today. And then also, as you were talking about that empty mailbox that is in your front door, I absolutely do go through every single one of those pieces of mail and, junk version versus not, but still it is something that you do actually have tangibly and look at. And yeah, I just thought that's a piece of interesting insight.
And we see that often with that tangibility. When you're holding a book, there's even studies that you have a higher recall of what you're reading. A lot of CXOs or CMOs, CFOs prefer reading important documents physically printed out than on their screen so they can make notes, so they can highlight things. So we see this time and time again when it comes to print that tangibility is so important when it comes to recall and when it comes to absorbing that information and taking action.
So let's talk about the actual practicality of what this means, really. So, how can an agency use print to ultimately drive either digital engagement or engagement in general with their clients and ultimately for themselves as well?
So there's a lot of different ways you can take advantage of print marketing. Tulip Media, we specialize in custom magazines and newsletters. So we're helping businesses all over North America put out a branded magazine that represents themselves and has value added content for their reader. And we see a great way to get that engagement that you're looking for, get that authorship, that readership that you're looking for with using things like QR codes, using free value adds. So like scan this QR code to get a free PDF of this. Having quizzes, coupons. We've seen everything from word searches to Sudokus. So there's a lot of different ways you can bring that engaging piece to your print initiatives.
Mm.
You don't have to go as robust as a magazine, but we see the value of that, and have a lot of case studies around that. Some clients just prefer to do postcards, but the magazine and the newsletters fit well for them.
So, walk me through just the kind of base of the magazine in the first place, the
Mhm.
idea behind the rationale of why that actually creates authority and engagement with the target audience, and then kind of what kind of things go into it aside from the Sudoku and, fun things that can go into it. But those value adds,
Mhm.
the way that it actually is, the amount of time that it takes for a client to be able to do so, just a little bit more clarity, maybe.
Yeah, so I'll use actually an example of an insurance agency. When it comes to creating magazines for insurance agencies we often work with, we're building that credibility because they're becoming the authority on that topic. They put a lot of time and effort, perceived time and effort into creating this magazine and sending it to other businesses that they want to get their commercial business or personal business from. So they're creating cyber insurance checklists or farm insurance is another one we've seen with another client partner. They're spotlighting community members too on things that how this insurance agency has helped other community members. So we always tell our clients to spotlight someone in your community because it's a great networking tool, because then you have someone else in the community being like, hey mom, look, I'm on the cover of a magazine or I'm in a magazine. It's creating that word of mouth, and it goes farther than just the Sudoku and the word searches that you're mentioning. There's so many resources that you can put in your magazine that you can create that engagement to extend your print from physical, tangible to online and getting their email address too.
Hmm. I'm curious now that you're talking about that, word of mouth oriented version, taking that physical printed or even digital version, digital zine too. I imagine that selecting that partner that's going to be going and promoting that magazine is useful. So how do you think about what partner to be considering?
So we've have a lot of diverse clientele and partners that come to us looking for that magazine. We have everything from actually one of the most common mediums are associations because they're trying to build their members and create that community, that networking.
Mm,
We also have a lot of real estate agents are a very common industry we work with because they're always trying to look different from other local real estate agents. So they're trying to always create recipes, give them home decor tips to increase their value or how to sell their home as well. So there's a lot of different diverse partners we work with. Um, and we have seemed to have a great fit for a lot of different industries.
I just find this really interesting in the idea. Like, I mean, the prospect for me in potentially creating a magazine feels a little daunting,
Mhm.
and that's interesting considering I recently just published a book, and somehow in my mind that feels less overwhelming. Also because I've done it a few times. But can you tell me a little bit about what it actually takes to produce one, and kind of how long are they, and how much time effort does it take to do so?
Yeah. So it's different for every client partner. However, we have an all-inclusive program. So we have everything from project managers to ghostwriters to designers, proofers. We have distribution experts so that we go when you come to us, we're saying, give us your current client list, but we can pull a list for you based off of certain demographics.
Mm,
So you are getting not only your current list and engaging and retaining them, but you're also doing kind of a prospecting list as well.
mm.
But we've had everything for page counts from 4 pages to 100 pages. Every client's different on what thickness they want for the magazine, on word counts and everything. But we have an all inclusive, easy program. So, like you're saying, it feels like a lot of work, but it's not. Some clients spend an hour on their magazine every quarter, some of them spend 5 hours on their magazine every quarter. It's just dependent on how much you want to work on the magazine, but our team takes care of all the heavy lifting.
Let's say, and thinking about the prospect of putting out a magazine feels a bit daunting, and kind of funny in that I have just published a book recently. The idea of me sitting down to produce a magazine or a mailer or what have you, the thing that I'm not really exactly sure about is, what exactly do I want to include? Who am I actually fully sending it to? What exactly are the takeaways that I want to have? Like, what are the considerations that I need to make in order to be able to do so?
Yeah, so if you're sitting down to thinking about a print program, I want you to think about what are your goals at the end of the day? Who are you trying to get this to? What are you trying to achieve? Is there a certain call to action? And then start thinking about your content. Are you going to write about cyber insurance? Are you going to write about real estate? Thinking about who it's going to go to and what problems they're having helps you kind of create that content. And then think about your paper, think about what printer you're going to use. So there's a lot of different checks and balances that you need to go through. Just like anytime you're writing a book, and I'm sure you went through this, you're proofing it too, Robert. Like you're looking through it over and over again and you're going,
Too
okay,
many times.
yeah. And sometimes the perfection is the enemy of getting that out, but you're looking through it and making sure that it meets your brand's tone of voice, it meets your brand colors. So there's a lot of considerations when it comes to magazines, but maybe it's not a magazine, maybe it's a postcard, maybe it's a free offer that you're sending out in someone's mail and mailing that out. Just making sure that it has that call to action that you're trying to achieve is probably the most important thing. A lot of us sometimes forget that call to action. uh,
It's would be, yeah, definitely an important component. Otherwise, it doesn't really do serve you any purpose. The item that I wonder really, right, is that when we are sending out something to someone, often what I find interesting that a lot of people kind of miss is one, that they're too salesy and trying to push too hard. And
mhm,
two, they're not actually thinking about the like actual decision making criteria that lead to them needing that service or needing that business and wanting to engage. And so it's like, what is the prelude thinking that's ultimately happening before that happens, right? So as you were
mhm,
describing from a real estate perspective, that you may want to give like some design tips or considerations in selling a home and all of those things, right? So it's like the
mhm.
initial thought beforehand. And so like, how do you think through what are the topics that I want to be hitting as the prelude idea before they're even going to need us?
It kind of comes down to two things. Who's your core customer and where are they in the buyer's journey? We'll go back to the real estate because that's a great one to kind of think about is I live in a military town. So posting happens every spring. That's when you should be sending out any of your marketing initiatives to kind of get people to start thinking about, okay, I'm selling my house, I'm about to move. That's when you're starting to send out those marketing initiatives. So when
Mm.
it comes to who's my core customer, I'm a customer who wants to move fast, get a fair price. So any of my content that the real estate agent's sending around should have that problem that they're agitating in their messaging and
Mm.
offering that solution. So looking at your core customer and where they are in the buyer's journey, that's super important with any marketing initiative, not even just print.
I want to highlight that. And while listeners, you may feel that this is sounding from a messaging perspective, an ideal customer persona piece, that that's normal and that you would expect that. However, I do want to point out, and I want you to think about that a little bit more because I would say 9 out of 10 agencies that I speak with are not actually thinking about that improperly. While you are a marketing expert, there's the whole cobbler's kids with no shoes kind of scenario. And I want to make sure that you're actually truly thinking about it and immersing yourself in the journey, the thinking, the issues, the pain points of your ideal customer profile. And if you don't actually fully have that documented and really have that profile distinguished, it's really a problem when it comes to creating content, and very important and a vital step that you should be doing if you haven't done so. From a
Yeah.
costing perspective, one of the things that I see happen quite a lot, and I'm curious around the costing of mailers and magazines and postcards and all that sort of stuff as well, the print volume and those considerations, cost considerations. But the thing that I see happen a lot when it comes to marketing campaigns is that someone's trying the cheapest possible way to get in front of someone and not actually considering, well, the whole point of a marketing campaign is to put more dollars in my pocket. And they're kind of looking at a vanity metric oriented piece and how many eyeballs do I ultimately get and brand awareness. And if you're Coca-Cola, brand awareness is important. But if you're a small marketing agency, the objective isn't to have a whole lot of eyeballs. It's actually getting in front of the right person. So being more targeted is important, and you can be with this type of media. And so my question is, one, the cost consideration, and then what are the actual like end kind of metrics that you tend to see from a conversion to calls, a conversion to sale, a conversion to following those QR codes and the trackability of all those things?
Mhm. From a cost perspective, I mean, that depends on frequency, how many times you're sending it out, quantity, and also page count. So if you're sending a mailer, it's going to be very different from a magazine or a newsletter per se. So that varies. And then that's something that you'd have to think about and get quotes about as a business. When it comes to metrics, you're right. It's different for everyone. I'm going to use another example here. We work with a fire truck manufacturer that sells these very niche, expensive $1 million fire trucks all over North America to fire chiefs. And they use a printed newsletter. and they put in there 3 things you need on your next tanker, how to write an RFP for your next tanker. They put in value added content that these fire chiefs can use because they are busy doing other stuff, and they've gotten sales from that. So when it comes to measuring, you can have call to actions in there. You can have specific phone numbers for your different marketing campaigns. Create a
Mm.
phone number all day, every day for different marketing campaigns. That way you can actually measure what is making your phone ring at the end of the day, what initiatives. QR codes are great. Free PDF downloads. How many emails have you gotten in the last week? There's a lot of different metrics you can track when it comes to not just digital, but also print marketing.
I'm also curious now, talking about the, the digital landscape and the physical medium that we are talking about here, like how do they actually couple together, and what are the ways to actually kind of bolster both working together? Because you're talking about like digital downloads, things like that can be in the magazine, QR codes that
Mhm.
could potentially be used. How do you actually see the like integration of the two?
Oh, it integrates so well. A lot of us in this day and age have a blog. So if you have a blog, you can have a magazine very quickly. And it goes the other way. If you created a magazine, now you have 6 blog posts that you can schedule out for the next 6 months. You're putting this on your socials. So those blog posts become social posts. The magazine itself is a social post. You're putting these free reports that are on your website and redistributing on all your other social mediums. There's so many different ways you can do that, and a lot of the blog posts that you're creating should be SEO optimized, so you're helping your organic reach. So there's a lot of different ways you can integrate your print and digital, and it couples so nicely. If you're doing the work on one side, you might as well put it into the other side as well.
Awesome. The kind of thing that I wonder, right, is I'm sure through your experience in the 10 years that you've been at Tulip, you've learned many things. There's been both, highly successful campaigns and then campaigns that, we learned a lesson, we'll say.
Mhm.
What would you say is like the distinction between a really successful campaign and how did that go? What exactly did they do? And then one that didn't really work, and what was the distinction between the two?
It's actually, you'll probably laugh at this. It's when the client makes the messaging all about them and not the client. I know you've probably come across that as well with the work that you do, but it's not, it's focusing too much on we've been in business for 15 years. This is who we've worked with. That's important. That's a credibility factor for a business. However, that's not going to resonate with your readers. So you need to focus on your readers and where they're at with the buyer's journey. Going back to that, what problems are they having? So really talking to them and not focusing so much on yourself. You're not the hero of the story, they are.
At least they should be, really. I mean, there's components in that credibility piece. I agree. And especially with listeners, and I don't know specifically calling you out, but the clients that I tend to work with, when it comes to even sales conversations, there's so much that you're like talking about yourself that doesn't
Mhm.
actually result in any relationship being built. The example that I like to give is like let's say that you meet someone at random, and the thing that they end up doing is like, hey, Jessica, I'm Robert. This is what I do, and this is who I am, and this is why I'm awesome, and this is why I'm great, and this is how long I've been doing this thing. What is your response going to be to me
You
doing that meeting in
immediately
person?
immediately stop listening.
And probably walk away from me.
Yeah. It's like, okay, we're not going on a second date. Like it's you're done. It's not listening to your customers. It's not putting out messaging that's going to resonate. It's using jargon that they don't understand. As a marketer myself, I'm constantly abbreviating thing. I think earlier I said RFP, and some listeners might go, "What is that?" Request for proposal. Don't use language people don't understand or you're going to lose them.
The amount of times that I've like tried to be playful in marketing messaging and ultimately it just totally bombed, and realizing that you need to use as simple language as possible, because the reality of it is that me being a avid reader and liking to spend a lot of my free time doing that's not the reality of the American public, really, and the modern world for a lot of instances. And if we're not truly thinking through and making sure that we're not making the reader feel like they don't understand, that they feel dumb, that's a great way to get them to fully disengage and then not
Mhm.
resonate with your messaging. And so making sure that we're meeting them where they are is really important. And not saying that your audience is dumb. They just, maybe you're utilizing a terminology that they're just not familiar with. And let's face it, in today's world, most people don't have time to then stop reading what they're reading, go look up what that word means, and then come back to it. They're done. They put it down.
Yeah, you have 3 to 5 seconds to get their attention. And if you're using large words, big words, You might lose that. I think the study is now you have to talk at a sixth grade reading level. And that's something you have to keep in mind when it comes to your website, especially. Does your header, does the first thing your people are seeing, does it tell them what you're doing and how you're going to help the person?
From a volume perspective, let's say that I were to want to launch a campaign. I now have thought through my buyer's journey. I've thought through the content. I feel pretty comfortable with exactly where I'm going to go. Maybe I haven't written it yet. But what is the volume that I need to be considering in order for the campaign to be successful? What would be my initial test volume
For digital or print?
for print?
Again, it's different for everyone, but our most common volume is 4 times a year that we're seeing a print campaign. And it's funny, 4 times a year kind of makes the receiver think they're getting it monthly just because time goes by so quickly. Sometimes they're like, "Oh, I just got this." No, you got it last quarter. And it's like the Costco magazine I get. I get a Costco magazine, I think it is every couple months, but it feels like it's coming every month.
And from a actual true volume perspective of the amount of them that I'm sending out, what is a minimum kind of test that I want to be doing to make sure that I'm getting an understanding, kind of statistical significance of maybe the first test is 200 or 1,000 or
Mhm.
5,000? Like, what does that look like?
So we always recommend having your current client list and maybe doing a tester for a potential lead list because we kind of want to see your current clients. It's great for retaining and engagement, but we want to see new people coming into your marketing as well. So we'll see everything from 1,000 as their first kind of starter, and then they work the way up sometimes.
And from a return perspective, making sure that I'm going in with the right expectations.
Hmm.
Expectations I think are quite important. What is the typical kind of, if I were to send out 1,000, how many QR code scans would I expect? How many visits am I going to see? How many calls should I expect from that, from like a percentage perspective?
Again, it depends on was your goal brand awareness because that might be 10% returned your call. But if you had strong call to action, strong downloads, you might see that blip. A great example is that one of our lead generators we have at Tulip, we put it in our magazine. And when we put the magazine out, I think it went out to 2,500 people. I had 100 signups within a week on that free offer we had. So again, I know people are reading it and I know it's resonating with a certain core customer group.
Speaking of free offers, I know that one of the things that you have is an offer to listeners. And if you're considering a creating a magazine, I know that you have like a guide for that. Can you share a little bit about what's included?
So we recognize that not everyone wants to work with an agency, and that's perfectly fine. And so we want to give visitors the tools that they need to create a magazine or create a print program. So we have something called the Ultimate Magazine Guide Checklist. And it's also an ebook as well. So it's free on our site. You can go right onto our Make a Magazine page on Tulip and download that for free. And I hope it helps you create that checklist, create that goal, and create that plan on how to make your print program successful.
Awesome. And listeners, we'll make sure to go ahead and include a link in the show notes so that you can go ahead and grab that checklist. Thank you so much for joining us today, Jessica. It was really interesting.
Thank you so much, Robert.